This is part A of the Khoodeelaar television channel, Khoodeelaar, KhoodeEAR television, being broadcast on the under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions. The Baby Angel Geronimo essay. The one of the things that the rainy day does to people in London, for example, people needing to use public transport, more specifically, needing to use local buses. The bus service doesn't exist. It's a monopoly controlled by the Transport fucking London, TFL. Like the London Metropolitan Police, the incumbent in the corrupt post of mayor at the expense of London, quote, bus driver's son, Sadiq Khan, is a complete, absolute unfit for purpose. Buses in London, abruptly and without any visible notice or announcement, allowing or enabling the passengers or potential passengers of the impending, serious, time wasting delays, disruptions, and diversions. So these happen, and even when these happen with a bus packed with passengers, the driver appears to be sitting there on his own. Mainly, it's a male drivers kind of demography. And the drivers are mostly, not all, but mostly of African origin. That is just a description. I'm not connecting the African origin with their performance, which I'm about to detail. These drivers are fucking morons. Absolute fucking morons. Because they would sit there like they did today, looking at whatever piece of paper this one was looking at. And it was minutes. Now, without being told how long it will take, well, the bus was in a standstill, standing still at a stop. A minute feels like an hour. Inna al ashaddu al intizaru ashaddu min al maut, as the saying goes. Al intizaru ashaddu min al maut. Now let's see if I have got that right. Let's check. So I have written the transliteration. Well, I should write actually the T. I missed the T. So al intizaru ashaddu min al maut. And the dictionary, in the online dictionary, which has produced the result, rektadictionary.com, and waiting at a bus stop with a fucking stupid shit driver completely ignoring the bus full of passengers, not being told anything about what he is doing. What do you do? All the rages that you could command come together, but you can't do anything. For a start, the passengers are not recognized by the Transport for London, not by Sadiq Khan, because there are 5 or 6 notices on every bus. And the bus says assaults on drivers will not be tolerated, etc., etc. There is no reference, there is no even single mention of ordinary passengers. The only mention of the passengers is as criminals. It says that a prosecution will happen, begin to deal with just the bus phenomenon. How many people in London travel by bus? like the son of a bus driver. Son of a bus driver, Sadiq Khan, couldn't give a shit about the discomfort, inconvenience benefits caused by the buses being incompetent, uncourteous, and disrespectful and hostile to the collection of the passengers or the rider. Rider is such an utterly inappropriate and offensive, aggravatingly offensive word. For understandable reasons, Boris Johnson dissected in terms of his bad behavior, bad character, and bad reputation. And compared to Boris Johnson, the criminal Sadiq Khan has not been dissected at all. And compared to Boris Johnson, even this criminal, last one as the incumbent in the corrupt post of mayor, Ken Livingstone Livingston, has not been dissected. Yet London's public, which is bigger than London's public have been treated with contempt by successive generations of what used to be called government, local London governance. And there is nothing that the shitbags sitting as the London Assembly members have done to hold the fucking Transport for London crooks to account, to hold the fucking crook Sadiq Khan to account. The shitbag Sadiq Khan is absolutely unfit for purpose. But there is an irony there. Because if the shitbag Sadiq Khan is unfit for purpose, then how can you describe with any possibility of any elegance or dignity any of the offered alternatives offered by the Conservative Party to replace Sadiq Khan at the election? And this lie, Sadiq Khan knows that there is nothing the Conservatives can do to actually depose him. They can replace him. Because what the Conservatives have so far produced, well, of course, included the twat who put his cock, his penis, aimed at Daisy Goodwin, except that it was covered by his proud trousers, but she could see that his penis was aroused as he sat in front of her, strategically placed himself on a chair so that she could not, he hoped she could not take her eyes off his cock. Now, this is not me making up any of this. These are all words published by Daisy Goodwin. After that, this prick had to be kicked out of the race and he resigned. But notice the response to the disclosures that Daisy Goodwin made about this criminal. The media, so called commentators, significant numbers of them took the criminal side. What does it say about the possibility that with that kind of situation prevailing among the London public, anyone like the prick would feel impelled to offer accountability to the people of London, assuming in this thread that he is elected. It again took Daisy Goodwin to point that out. And eventually, Daisy Goodwin persisted until this criminal resigned while still protesting that he was innocent. That shows that in the Labour Party, on the opposition on the Greater London Assembly, there isn't anyone, not even a single one, who supposedly waiting to replace the UK central government. And Sadiq Khan knows that the Conservatives can't replace him. So he is completely, he's not even silent. He's brazenly, in a calculated way, condemning the Conservatives. So we shall be coming back to the Transport Fact London in due course again. But this is today. Today has been 4 hours of absolutely annoying experience on the buses by me. And the reason why I had to travel was to get hold of the newspapers for this broadcast. Not only this broadcast, but as my own daily kind of activities include reading the newspaper. The Evening Lying Standard has got the front page. The picture of the criminal, the political murderer of the Labour Party. Underneath his picture, there is this heading on the front page of the Evening Lying Standards. Is this our PM in waiting? Exclusive interviews, Starmer on knife crime, Corbyn and Tex. The two beards, the Russian two beards who owns the evening lying standards, should have got it by now. That instead of so there's a picture on page 3 of the Evening Lying Standard of in the picture of this standing in the debris outside the site of the Al Ahli Al Arabi hospital in central Gaza. And in a montage, Libyan, nasty, Nazi like Netanyahu is in an embrace with the doddering Biden who has landed in Tel Aviv. And there is a picture by Martin Bentham on page 4, there is a piece by Martin Bentham on page 4 of the Standard saying, "They're shouting, 'Die, Israel!' The last text from doomed British mother." And Starmer says, "Jeremy Corbyn, I won't wave at him across the street." The mood in 97 was one where the song "Things Can Only Get Better" chimed. That's not the mood now. It's flat insecure, and people are concerned. the mixture of confusion and misinformation and sheer utter cruelty. And there is this mental slave, the second one after Trevor Terrible P Lips, that is being expanded into the Evening Standard from the Telegraph and the Daily Mail, I suppose, called Tomiwa Oulade. I have spelled it. He says George Orwell was a very problematic man, but he was also a complete genius. Now, what the fuck does the shit think George Orwell needs? His approval certificate? This fucking cunt won't know a genius if the genius kicked him all day and all night without any break, which is what I would like to do, totally morally and sympathetic, without any break for a whole week until the slave cunt confesses and agrees that racism is bad, imperialism is bad, and racists are bad, etc., etc. What is the I newspaper, which is controlled by the Daily Mail, doing? Front page of the I newspaper is a picture of three women, Muslim women, weeping with one little girl in between them. Up to 500 people killed in hospital strike. Palestinian officials say, blaming Israeli bombing. And Israeli military claims that the explosion was caused by a Hamas rocket that fell short. This evil fucking cunt in France, Macron, is latching on. Now, where do we begin to dissect this genocidist massacre of the frightened Palestinians sheltering in the hospital that has now become the site of Israeli massacre. Party, that is the Labour Party, unsettled after councillors quit over Starmer Gaza comments. One council leader told I newspaper there was an extraordinary disconnect between the Labour leadership and the party's council leaders. Now, as anyone who has been familiar with the broadcasts I've been making about the evilness called Starmer the last 4 calendar years, I have been calling him the political murderer of the Labour Party. And I've been calling him political murderer of the Labour Party long before anyone even remotely began to saw him wearing a kind of civilian clothing. Now it says the I newspaper piece says Keir Starmer is battling to contain growing unrest among Labour council leaders over the party's stance on the Israel Hamas conflict. The leadership held a meeting with dozens of council leaders on Monday evening amid an increasing backlash to Keir's comments in support of Israeli actions against the Gaza Strip. The Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy and Labour Leader's Chief of Staff Sue Gray met council leaders in areas with large Muslim communities who warned that support for the party was in free fall as a result of Labour's stance. Several councillors resigned from Labour Party this week in protest after Keir said that Israel has the right to cut all water, food, and electricity into Gaza in response to Hamas's attack. A meeting then, and among them was Amna Abdul Latif. There is a picture of this woman called Amna Abdul Latif, the first Muslim woman to be elected to Manchester City Council. In her statement, she said she was appalled by the lack of humanity being shown to Palestinians by the party I have been a member of for the last 10 years. So, is that all? Miss Abdullah Latif wrote on Twitter, I am devastated to now have no choice other than to resign the Labour Party from the Labour Party due to Kiar's and a number of his front bench making horrifying comments about Israel having the right to withhold water, right to withhold fuel, water, food, and electricity from the 2.2 million Palestinians trapped in Gaza, effectively endorsing a war crime. That is what Keir Starmer has been accused of doing. And this woman, Abdul Latif in Manchester, is not the first one to say that Starmer is actively engaged in war crime now. We have said for the last 4 years at least that Keir Starmer is a political murderer of the Labour Party. I say this with particular emphasis on the evidence. For example, the evidence on which we say that Keir Starmer is a political murderer of the Labour Party is in the words, in the actions of Starmer himself and his criminals. And this woman, a Cambridge educated woman, described as Cambridge educated woman who became a barrister more than 35 years ago, has been made a Supreme Court justice. Now, let me say this again. It's a fucking insulting thing to say that somebody's gender is relevant or their ethnicity is relevant or their faith is relevant when they're put in position of some organization that is part of the state. I say that neither gender nor ethnicity nor faith matters and should not be treated as if it does matter. The only thing that matters, especially let's say in this context, when somebody is appointed a judge in the Supreme Court, is any evidence that can be cited in context when reporting this particular announcement. Any evidence of this individual, that is the new appointee to the British Supreme Court, any evidence of her having sacrificed anything in her career of 35 years since she became a barrister 35 years ago. Any evidence of her sacrificing anything for a principle? If it was 35 years ago, now one I was, as I keep saying, I have been advocating for law rights, legal rights, constitutional rights, and so on for more than 60 years. And in 1973, I was I was chosen by a group of licensed law trading barristers, one, two, three, I think, or four, maybe five, that had only recently met me at that point. And they proposed that they should use what was at that time the procedure, the conventional rule, the route to getting the license to practice as a barrister. That meant that practicing barristers of some substantial standing could nominate and propose and support somebody like me. And they did that. Well, that is what they said they did. And when I said to them that I had not received any communication to that effect from the Lincoln's Inn, which is the inn that they belonged to, and they said they had nominated me for. So I went to the Lincoln's Inn office. I'm kind of skipping a lot of communications, correspondence, etc., that I had held with the administrator called Barbara Bates. And the essential reason why I went there was to test the veracity of the claim by these five barristers on the one hand, and Barbara Bates saying that she had not received the nomination. But those five barristers had no reason to lie about it. So I challenged her. Lincoln's Inn office, it wasn't, it didn't, the challenge, my challenge was barbell, and it didn't actually last more than half an hour, I don't think. But during the course of this row argument between me and Barbara Bates, I decided that I would not want to become a barrister, licensed barrister, through the organization called Lincoln's Inn. If that meant that I'd have to allow senior, serious decision makers to tell lies and be allowed to get away with lying, that is the reason why I said no. Because if I had gone back to the five barristers and demanded a more organized appearance at the Lincoln's Inn office, there is no doubt that I would have been allowed to pass through and get the barristers practicing documentation, which I rejected. So 1973 is, if you take that as a starting point, temporarily, then it is before the now retired UK Supreme Court President David Neuberger became a barrister. Let's check when he became a barrister, just to make sure that I am not confusing the kind of length of time between myself and David Neuberger in the context of being a barrister. I'm checking on Neuberger's year of call. What year was he called to the bar? After reading chemistry at Oxford and then spending 3 years as an investment banker, David Neuberger was called to the bar in 1975. So that was 2 years after I would have started. And he practiced largely in property law, taking silk in 1987. Now, if I agreed to start practicing as a barrister in 1973, then I would have become a QC or take a silk. I would have taken a silk 1985 or thereabouts. I mean, going by the time that David Neuberger took. None of the judges, none of the judges that has been behaving as the prostitute for the DEFRA department against the claims of baby angel Geronimo, none of these judges would have been around. I mean, they're much younger than me and much more junior to me. Now, although I didn't have the kind of formal card carrying status as a barrister at law from 1973, I have been practicing the law. Remember this, practicing the law widely starting from the 1960s. So if you say 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it's now 7 calendar decades. And the experience of my advocacy is now established as being exclusive experience in that I have defeated almost all the advocates for the government, for the rich people, etc., etc. And I have established rights for the people that have sought my help in a way that those people would never have been able to get any representation if they went to the likes of David Neuberger or any of these judges. Say, for example, if I appeared, which I haven't done, if I appeared for baby angel Geronimo at any stage, any platform, my advocacy for baby angel Geronimo and advocacy of the rights of the baby angel Geronimo would have been absolutely different. from anything that Catherine McGahey has said or any of her kind of predecessors in that role have said in supposedly advocating for the baby angel Geronimo. So, what I'm doing, one of the things I'm doing in this essay for baby angel Geronimo is making up for that lost kind of time and opportunity to defend the baby. I am totally, I'm totally emotionally overcome every time that I think about the betrayal of the baby angel's case, the views of baby angel Geronimo sitting as judges and the betrayal of the right by the evilness called Christian evilness the criminals named or not named, based at and facilitated by the DEFRA, the criminal organization, and the criminals in the judiciary, they have got their records being compiled by the angels. Two angels recording compiling the records for these animals, these evil ones. Sorry, not animals, these evil ones. And those records contain their disrespect and their refusal to recognize the rights of baby angel Geronimo, the innocence of the baby angel Geronimo. For example, when the criminality called the DEFRA confected a statement issued in the public or issued in public and to the public in supposed response to why they would not agree with Helen MacDonald to have baby angel Geronimo objectively, neutrally, independently tested. And the criminal said that baby angel Geronimo had been tested and that he had been tested with the result that he tested positive. That is the answer to the interrogation that is represented in the supposed test. Test, and if it is a positive result, it means the question has been answered. And the question is like in the referendum: does baby angel Geronimo carry with him the critical, tricky bovine tuberculosis? And apparently the answer is yes, he does. That's the positive. But that's not true because he has never been, baby angel Geronimo has never been tested. As I have been elaborating on the whole thing with increasing length in the last, let's say, dozen or so editions of the Khoodeelaar television channel, baby angel Geronimo has never been tested in England, in Britain, in the United Kingdom, because they are incapable. They have been shown to have been incapable of holding an independent, neutral test. Think about it. Think very carefully about this, what I am saying, what I have been saying. In order to get an independent test, any biological being, either baby angel Geronimo or a human being, would have to be left alone in their biological entity, intact, without interference from external elements, so that whatever the reading to the test is authentically a reading of the truth of the state of their biology at that time. Okay? The equilibrium must not be interfered with, tampered with. But that is what the DEFRA criminals were determined to violate. And the determination to violate the integrity, independence of the biology of the baby angel Geronimo was intended to produce the yes result. So they infected, they infected in advance of supposed test an extra series of elements, drugs into the biology of the baby angel Geronimo, which produced the result of those infections they had injected. They didn't produce the result of baby angel Geronimo's independent biology. So I've said this in various ways, and this is on the record, so it doesn't need to be repeated. So the judges and the various ranks of legal teams were aware of the fact that the so-called tests that were carried out Geronimo, were in truth no tests at all, but they were staged events, wrongly described as tests. But in truth, they were staged in order to produce a result that the DEFRA criminals wanted to see produced by via via the biology of baby angel Geronimo, not by baby angel Geronimo, but by intruding, falsely intruding into the body the biology of the baby angel Geronimo. Think about that. We shall be, of course, continuing all of this, but the fact is that everything in the United Kingdom, the state, everything about the United Kingdom stinks. There is Jimmy Savile stinks. Boris Johnson stinks. David Cameron stinks. Tony Blair stinks. Keir Starmer stinks. HS2 stinks. So everything about the United Kingdom stinks. Stinks. The judiciary stinks. The parliament stinks. The government stinks. The media stinks. So where can a demonized, defamed baby angel Geronimo go to for redress? Baby angel Geronimo can only ask the one and only Creator, God Almighty, for justice and fairness and independence. And that is what baby angel Geronimo is preparing as he is witnessing the current ongoing criminalities and lies by the UK state. This fortnight's, that is, the new fortnight's edition of the Private Lie, which is publishing editorial number, the publishing serial number 1609. And it covers the fortnight 20th of October 2023 to 2nd of November 2023. I bought this copy today, Wednesday, the 18th of October 2023, from a branch of the W.H. Smith. 2 and the £2.99 cover price of the fortnightly Private Lie reads: Warning. This magazine may contain some criticism of the Israeli government and may suggest that killing everyone in Gaza as revenge for Hamas atrocities may not be a good long term solution to the problems of the region. That is how it looks to the camera. I'll try again. That's the warning. And this is a historic cover for the private life, which is published, edited, and written by Zionists themselves. When the campaign, Khoodeelaar campaign, included in the profile as one of our regular themes, opposition to HS2, we knew that nobody else would agree with us. By nobody else, I mean all the commentators on the British mainstream newspapers and the other self promoting social post makers. And I knew that they were doing that. They would not be agreeing with us because to agree with us, would risk their given careers, their incomes. So the entire British Parliament carried on supporting the corruptly confected edition program called HS2 High Speed 2. The corruptly majority owned, or the corruptly majority ownership owned, the corruptly kind of confected arguments for HS2 were left alone. And judging by the last 1 month and the prominent front page backing for HS2 by the likes of The Guardian shows that without elaborating the actual reasons why I did what I did, I mean, one of the letters that the Murdoch owned Times has published in the last week is, funnily enough, signed by Christian Wolmer. Now, Christian Wolmer is one of the absolutely shameless, disgraceful, self seeking, quote, experts who then takes turn as a writer as well. But this time it was a letter from him published in the Times saying that the decision by the current kind of government in the United Kingdom, the Conservatives, to confer the decision by the conservative government to scrap substantial part of this HS2 was the correct one? How far have we traveled from Christian Walmart's promotion of a wasteful, unjustifiable project to the Guardians and the Timeses, for example? HS2 has now been abandoned by most supporters of the conniving Keir Starmer. The Keir Starmer hasn't made a single point about that, but well, as far as I can see, except for the very short spiel in the just ended Labour Party in Liverpool. The economic case for HS2 never existed. The economic case will get even in the period after the so-called the HS2 never made. And as I said, the all the evidence shows that transport, the future of transport, let's say, to borrow a phrase, the future of transport does not include, remember, does not include or depend on there being a high speed rail. As Peter Hitchens has pointed out, the United Kingdom is smaller than France. By that, he meant that the particular railway track used in France or in Spain or in other countries that are bigger than the United Kingdom, the tracks are much smaller in those countries than the tracks for HS2 that has been being developed in Britain. The, what we shall be doing is just bring to an end this particular edition, which is 1 hour and 18 minutes, with the interruptions that is included. There was an interruption of a few minutes at some stage. So we shall be continuing on the theme of baby angel Geronimo in due course in the next editions that follow.